Motion to come out of executive session. So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Okay. First on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Presentations, Chief Lash, you like to step up to the podium. Front and center.
Good evening, everyone. So I was invited here tonight. Basically just talk about some trends that we're seeing and talk about some issues we're having and to educate the public a little bit about some things. Because I think it's time for education. We've tried everything else. And so we're going to try the education piece. First, I want to pitch that we're looking for qualified applicants. So if anybody knows anyone who's qualified and I think has a little bit of crazy in them, so you could do this job, it'd be great. We'd use them. So first off, I want to start off by saying we are out there doing things. It's a big town and a lot of people don't see what we're doing. They don't see us. There was some chatter lately that we don't do anything. And I've got 15,000 calls in the year 2023 that says that we are doing things. So if anybody has questions, please come see me in my office and we can go over what we're doing for calls. And yes, just want to get that out of the way first. Secondly, we're seeing the effects of some liberal policies take a major effect, especially when it comes to the drug problem. We had an incident a couple weeks ago that didn't open our eyes because we're aware of it, but when we made known what happened, it opened a lot of other people's eyes who didn't understand exactly what was going on in this town with the drug problem. So they thought it would be good for me to share what we're seeing so the public understands. So the latest trends that we're seeing is what's happening is gangs from out of state are taking advantage of our local addicts. So what they're doing is somehow these people are becoming acquaintances, whether it's the addicts are going down there, buying drugs, and then coming back. But what happens is some of these gang members get some heat on them locally, whether it's from other gangs in New York or from the police in New York. So they'll send members of these gangs up here to Maine to set up shop. And what they'll do is they'll go to these addicts' house and they'll say, hey, I'll give you fix today if I can sleep on your couch. Well, then it turns into their addiction. It becomes more than sleeping on the couch. How about I'll take your bedroom, you sleep on the couch because you owe me this much money. And then it's, okay, I'm going to sleep with your girlfriend. Excuse me. I'm going to sleep with your girlfriend to pay for your fix. And so that's where this human trafficking piece comes into. So the drug trafficking is not only bringing drug trafficking, but it's bringing sex trafficking, human trafficking. It's happening here in Waldoboro. And I think it shocked some people when we told them what was happening. They didn't realize it was here. It's everywhere, but it's here in Waldoboro. And the reason why I say the liberal policies have led to this is what we're finding is the old way we used to do things is we would arrest people on possession charges. And these possession charges were felonies. And so it was easy to get people to flip. It was easy for people to get buys. It's basically getting the little fish in order to get the big fish. What's happened is these crimes have been decriminalized. So heroin possession or fentanyl possession or cocaine possession used to be a felony. Now it's a misdemeanor. Also, with all the use of deferred dispositions, you may get charged with a felony, but if you behave for 6 months, it'll be a misdemeanor. So what's happened is the little fish that we used to use for these bigger drug cases are now, they know they're just going to get slapped on the wrist, so they won't flip. They're not willing to work with us because they know they're not going to. Nobody's being held accountable. So I just wanted to educate people, let people know what's going on out there in the drug world and the problems we're seeing because of some of these liberal policies. Are there any questions about any of that stuff? I know it's kind of a lot. It's heavy. It's heavy.
So. The people who are using are. Victims of their addiction.
Correct.
So we have people now who come in and prey upon that addiction.
Correct.
Part of my issue is how do we, and I know you don't have the answer to this because you and I have spoken about this numerous times, but. We need treatment for people who are addicted to drugs.
The underlying problem is drug addicts. So if we don't have drug addiction, we don't have drug addicts, we don't need drug dealers, right? There's no reason for them to be here. We don't have drug addicts. How do we help the addicts? How do we get them better? Well, first of all, let's hold them accountable. When we saw success with addicts is when they had a bail condition or they were on probation, they had to check in every day or every week. That's when they were getting better.
So you've seen that trend.
We've seen that after when COVID happened and we were having these groups where people coming in these groups, they had to come to these groups sober. They weren't sober when they came to these groups. They went back to jail or they got a probation violation. We're not seeing that now.
So one of the things that we need to be loud about, I would say, is we need treatment. So I guess one of the things that the town folks, whether they're residents or the select board, or we need to be vocal about needing better
And
facilities and better options for people who need treatment.
and Narcan isn't treatment. That's what this state is pushing right now. Just give everybody Narcan. Put Narcan in everybody's house. Yeah, it's great. You can save a loved one, but Narcan's not the fix. It fixes them immediately. We need to get them long-term treatment. That's
the goal.
That's the underlying problem.
Is we need long-term treatment for the people who are addicted.
Right. And some of that, you can't forget that accountability piece. We need to hold these people accountable while they're getting better, because they can't do it on their own.
Flash, how widespread would you, I know you hard to get solid numbers, but how widespread do you think this problem is in Waldeboro, just the town of Waldeboro?
I would guarantee you that 90% of families are affected by it one way or the other. I bet you poll any random family you come across in town, they're going to say somebody in their family is affected by it.
You mean they're a drug addict?
Yep.
They need their fix.
Yep.
Some of these non-convictions pled down potentially cause someone to potentially get violent afterwards, as far as,
So
does it progress?
So the problem I see with so deferred dispositions are awesome for first time offenders, right? You made a mistake, you did something that you normally wouldn't do. So for those who don't understand deferred disposition, basically I charge you with a felony and I charge you for stealing over $3,000 worth of stuff because you were down on your luck and whatnot. So you get a felony. But if you can behave and you can follow these conditions, this deferred disposition, you can follow these conditions for 6 months, a year, 2 years, or whatever. If you end on good terms and you haven't messed up since then, we'll drop this down to a misdemeanor. So you don't have a felony record. So that's deferred disposition. But the problem comes is when they're doing deferred dispositions over and over and over again to people who've proven that they can't stop committing crimes. So what happens is we'll charge someone with a felony, which along with a felony comes a whole lot of things. One, dangerous people can't buy guns, right? Felony says you can't own a gun. We wouldn't have to worry about a lot of this yellow flag stuff if people would just get charged with the felonies they were charged with originally instead of pled down over and over and over again. So yes, there are effects where that plays a huge role.
So treatment is the number one way.
It's the root cause. I mean, yeah,
It would.
addiction is
but
the root cause.
Addiction is the root cause, but treatment for that would help tremendously with the root cause.
How many groups were there before pre-COVID? in the area that would help
Uh,
hold us accountable?
yeah, so we had one big group locally and there were other groups, Damascotta, Wiscasset, and some of them have back up and running since then, but they're not the same. The people who were doing well needed that support system when COVID happened and those just disappeared. They had no support and they just went right back in their old habits.
Have being held accountable even at the court
Yep.
level
Yep.
to mandate
Okay.
them go into these.
During COVID, we couldn't even arrest people at one point.
Well,
I mean-
part of the issue is too, I think they had accountability at the group level.
Right.
Yeah.
But I mean. they
So
were doing
accountability
their
at the
job,
group
Yeah,
level, it
Yeah,
was.
but
yeah.
but a lot of those groups, they were court mandated to go to these groups.
Okay.
That's where I was getting at.
Yeah.
is If they're court mandated
Yeah.
that they go to these groups, and maybe we need to. Do something, maybe that's something we look into is pushing the district attorney to do that.
But I think we have to not lose sight of the treatment aspect.
Oh, no, well, that.
You
part
know,
of the
that's
treatment, I mean,
the treatment aspect, and but how, again, how do you? It's hard because how do you force somebody into treatment that doesn't wanna go? But how do they even
And they-
that's where the
start?
court mandate
That's
gets it.
right, it's,
Correct.
it's very
And
hard,
that's-
it's, I mean, obviously, if
They don't wanna go to.
If there
jail,
were
so
simple
they'll go to-
answers, if
go
there
to-
were simple
go to-
answers to this, the world would be different than it is. My feeling, and I felt very strongly about this, is I think the residents need to know what exists in the town. And what you guys are dealing with, but also because I think if there's more people aware of what's going on, you're more likely to hear about it.
Mhm.
So, and I think people do tend to wanna hide their head in the sand and say, well, that might happen in a city, but it's not happening in Waldeboro. And I don't want everybody to think it just happens in Waldeboro. It's happening all over. It's not just Waldeboro.
Yeah, no, and information building. It is huge in these cases to build these, it takes a lot to build these cases. Information is huge. The more information, so the more people that know, the more information that comes in, yeah, we'll have to sift through it, might have some. Some more calls or whatnot, but we need the information. So that's why we're educating, hoping that the more information comes in and maybe some of it will help, maybe some of it won't, but the more information, the better. Because,
It's always good to let
Yep.
people know what's
Yep.
going on.
and I know people don't necessarily always want to call dispatch and have their name out there and they want to remain anonymous. We've got this L-tip thing, it's tip 411. You can basically text this place and it'll get it to us, the proper agency, wherever it's happening, so. Anybody has,
Is it on our website?
it's on the sheriff's office website, but I've got
I
a
don't
whole,
know.
I got a whole bunch of flyers in the lobby, if anybody needs it.
Want to talk about some of your $15,000,
Fifty thousand calls, oh, yeah, so.
what they were.
Yeah, so probably the biggest complaint or the most frequent complaint I get is speeding complaints. They say we're not doing anything. So my guides vowed to get their traffic stops up and up over 3,000. So in 2023, I don't have 2024 numbers yet, but 2023 we did over 3,000 traffic stops, which was tripled. Basically. So,
Chief, of the 15,000 plus calls that you folks did in 2023, over 15,000.
Mhm.
How many of those do you think were attributable in one way or another to drug use?
So a lot of the thefts, and so, under here, you're gonna see like, police information. So a lot of the times we'll get tips and we'll get information. So I think there's almost like 400 police information calls in here and most of that's drug stuff. But like, it leads to a lot of these things. It leads to the burglaries. It leads to the overdoses, the death investigations. So not all these death investigations of the 13 death investigations we did, not all of them are overdoses, but half of them are.
You had 499 erratic operations.
Yep.
Am I reading
That could be anything. Since the invent of cell phones, you get somebody that passes you and you don't like it, you call in erratic operations. So those are, it's hard to say, but yeah, we get a lot of erratic operations.
Would you say some of the domestic violence and the other types of violence could be?
I would say most of that is alcohol, which is an addiction. Yep, plays a big part of it.
How many overdoses did we have?
You know, that is hard to say because since the invent of Narcan, we don't get called anymore. People are doing it and we're finding out about it days later. So the EMS is not getting the calls that we were anymore. Because people are just doing the Narcan on their own. It's a really hard number to gauge. I mean, there was a point where we were getting 1 to 2 a week that we knew about. And now we just don't hear about them anymore. And it's not because they're not happening. It's because everybody has Narcan.
And that might give everybody like a false sense of security.
Oh, yeah.
And I think one of the things too, that I talked to John about changing. A couple weeks ago, is we're gonna try to get out these monthly numbers. Even if we just put them on Facebook, send them to Lincoln County. Because I think people need to know, so part of it is, I think you get so involved in the day-to-day, and we've been short-staffed in the police department, well, since 7 years at least.
I can't remember the last time we were full staffed.
Fully staffed for, I think, half a day.
Half a day, yeah.
Fully staffed half a day for one day this year, last year. You know, so, and we're not as good as we should be about tooting our own horn. But I do think that that's good information to get out to the public of, and we try to stay away from, and John and I've had this conversation numerous times. You know, saying, you know, if you look at some police logs that says the name, and, you know, it's not about, but I think they should know about what types of calls we have.
I know that's been a bone of contention, the no
That's-
police log thing.
It's,
So I don't want to explain that a little bit. So innocent until proven guilty, right?
Right.
We're charging people that you're innocent till you're proven guilty. We've only said that we have probable cause to believe that you're guilty. That's why we summons you. Wait till you see it in the court news. That's why I'm not so quick to put these things out there. That's just my own
I
opinion.
think the call numbers are important, and I would say it's not just your opinion, there's a lot of legal discussion about police logs too. But I do think at least putting the numbers out, it keeps people aware of what number one, what's going on in the town, and two, what the police are doing. I mean, I like to tell this story. I had a woman one time call up who was convinced there was a speeding dump truck. And she called 911 because there was a speeding dump truck. And I understand speeding happens all over this town. It happens where, you know, you can't go anywhere and not hear about it. But she was very angry that she had called at 9 o'clock in the morning and an officer did not come. So she called again. So then she called again. It happened to be a day where we had a significant domestic disturbance, and it ended up, I believe it was they were in the middle of a standoff. You know, but she felt so strongly about the speeding that she called 3 times and then just very angrily called me and just explained what she felt. And I felt compelled to share with her, I'm sorry they haven't been able to get to you. Normally you would be gotten to, but have you heard all the sirens? We're a little busy they're a little busy at the moment. And after I explained to her, I said, you know, they're involved in this. She's like, oh, okay. Well, then she read about it a few days later. Well, she did. She called back and she goes, you know, you don't think about that when you live in the little town of Waldeboro. She goes, I just think it's a great, you know, great place. And I wouldn't even think that could happen in the town of Waldeboro. So I think that little bit of education, not that speeding isn't important, because it is, but I think that little bit of education is useful because people sometimes just don't realize you're so involved in your own life, you don't see what's going on in everybody else's.
Yeah, no, speeding is very important. I mean, we had 478 crashes in 2023. So.
One thing I wanted to ask you, because we are very proud of our community navigation program here. Have you found that as the police department, have you found that resource useful.
Yes, very, very helpful resource.
A lot of times, the police department and our EMS department are the first contact we have with people who genuinely have a need. And we've tried to address that, so it's that first line, it's, they can then give that card to whoever needs it, and then the follow-up is the next day.
It's great for us too, because a lot of times we're just there for negative things, and it's a positive thing we can hand to somebody, so it works out.
I'd just like to say, I want to thank you and your officers for what you do. When recently I learned of one of the calls that had to be fielded, I literally gasped at what happened. I certainly had a fallen apart. And I just want to thank you for you and your officers in working to unravel that case. Thank you very much.
Anybody else got anything for Joe?
You look like you have something.
I was gonna say, are you taking public comments as well, or? In case people will be first and then
Do you have something?
yeah, I have a few questions on.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. First question, are we seeing higher levels of other crimes that are tagging on to the issues that you mentioned earlier about the drug use and trafficking?
Crimes are up across the board, I would say. Interesting thing about this particular place that we're having an issue with recently is we used to be there a lot, used to do a lot there, but since these gangs have moved in, they've told the people, we don't want the cops here anymore. So we've actually had less calls there, which made us suspicious to begin with. So without naming places, it's yeah, it's an interesting how that turned out.
People are, so there are neighborhoods
Mhm.
that you could say people know.
Yep.
That are.
Yep.
Being visited by people who.
Mhm.
Essentially, people are scared.
Scared, or they don't want their source of drugs to be gone.
The next, it's not really a question, it's more of a comment. This was relating to the speeding tickets that were issued. Some people don't need to know the names or who or where, but it would help to just know that 3,000 tickets are issued, and it might help deter some people.
Yep, just a clarification, that's not 3,000 tickets, it's over 3,000 stops.
3,000.
Not everybody gets a ticket.
I'm just reading.
Yep, no, it's
I've been
fine.
running
No,
back
I just
and
wanted to
forth.
I just wanted to clarify that.
There was one question on the village parking enforcement, and I'll just read it word for word. Why is there no parking enforcement in the village?
When I'm dealing with, that's a tough one.
Well, there was parking enforcement.
There,
It's on your list.
yes. There are, we do deal with parking things, especially during snowstorms. That's about the only, we do write tickets here and there, enforcing the winter parking ban. And we do have vehicles towed during the winter parking ban. However, during the day, when I've got one guy on, he's busy running around taking other calls. He can't be downtown. And I just don't have the resources for it. I don't have a parking guy. It's just the truth.
The 3,000 stops, but also reporting the crashes would help again.
Mhm.
Has the disorderly property ordinance been used to evict anyone from their homes yet? And has there been any hearing yet held under the disorderly property ordinance?
Not that I'm aware of.
Is the body camera policy that was enacted 1 to 2 years ago still the current policy?
Yeah, there's been no revisions to it. Same policy.
I think that's all I have for now.
Yes.
Is the deferred conviction program in the state of Maine, does that include mandatory this tests or any kind of counseling?
That all depends on what the sentencing is. The sentencing, yeah, it's individual by individual. Yep, yep. So what I'll say about so the state makes the laws. The difference we're seeing is the policies within the individual DA's office. That's where we're seeing the issues. And I'm probably gonna get in trouble for that because I'm gonna be seen as the bad guy. It needs to be said. It needs to be said.
Absolutely. I mean, if we're not getting what we need done, we're just beating our heads against the
I
wall.
mean, we've tried asking, we've tried everything else, so I guess we've got to go public now.
That's why you're here tonight.
Yep.
I mean, we've got issues that can't seem to get resolved.
Well, we've got issues that are bigger than
Oh.
the town of Waldeboro can.
We're finally seeing the effect of these, and before it turns out to, well, like we're seeing out west, Seattle and places like, let's try to make a change for it turns out that.
I think that's one of the things that we have to formulate and discuss is, you know, we need to ask for resources to deal with addiction. We need to be vocal when, through our state legislators, about how can the town of Waldeboro, you know, we are not a big city. But we provide big city services and we have big city needs. And we need to get some of those resources directed to Waldeboro to help our people. I mean, these are our residents that are suffering from addiction. And we need to get those resources to the people that need them. And it's, you know, we have a amazing community navigator program. And, you know, you've all heard the success stories that we've had with through that office and finding help for people who've come and needed help. But this is even beyond us, but I just think we need to be vocal about what's happening and moving forward. How do we address it and what do we need to address it? And if that's a meeting with the DA and saying, hey, this is a problem that we're facing. But it doesn't stop there. I think we have to be vocal about, you know, helping people. There was a email that Bob, you sent me about changes to the GA. That's General Assistance Program, you know, and some of that was just to me beyond what, you know, I was very opinionated about that. You know, towns don't need more GA rules and regulations. Towns need things that actually give people help that's sustaining. GA is a temporary thing. Community navigation can change lives. That's what we need. That's what needs to be funded. You know, so I think we need to start being very vocal with the state about what we need. And
Go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, it just seems to me that what Chief Lash described this evening is like a catch-22. And it's reached the point of absurdity. And I kind of echo what Julie says. The powers that be, in a sense, helped to create this situation. And unforeseen results are what we're dealing with. It was, I think, back in the day when they made these changes, it was kind of a panacea. Give these people stuff that keeps them alive. Focus on keeping people alive. That's great. But the focus is very narrow. That's all you're trying to do. If you're not dealing with a root problem, you're shooting yourself in the foot. So I commend what you guys are doing.
mental health services and addiction services are gravely needed in the state of Maine. We need them in the town of Waldeboro.
Yeah.
And it's not something that people want to talk about. And it's not something everybody wants to know, but it's something that people need to understand and we need to know. And as a community, face it and say, how do we fix it? And believe me, I don't have, you know, if people had the answers, there's towns all over the country that are dealing with this. We just have to be vocal about it and we need to be transparent about it.
Well, it also goes as far as to say that one of the things that does need to change is something that empowers our police officers to do their jobs the way they should be done and not having their hands tied. Tying their hands is not productive.
But I appreciate that the fact that, you know, you've said this many times. I think part of some people's frustration, and I even picked up on some of it today, on a couple of social media, posts, is that, well, nothing's getting done about the drugs. You've said this numerous times. There's rules. You are governed by rules.
We
It-
follow rule. I mean, the Fourth Amendment is a very important right that we all share, we all have. There's certain rules we have to follow so we don't violate those rights and follow rules.
So it's hard when somebody says, oh, well, I see this, or I think this is happening, or why aren't you doing anything?
And the criminals have smartened up to these rules. Few examples, when these gangs come up here, they never drive, they use rental cars. The reason why they never drive is because we can only ID the driver. We don't have probable cause to speak to anybody else in the car. They know they don't have to give us their ID, so they've learned that. They never have drugs and money on the same person or in the same car, because they've learned that if they have drugs and money, it's a trafficking, it's a sentencing thing. They get a higher charge if they have both. So they've learned these little nuances to use the Fourth Amendment to their advantage.
But again, we have to follow, and sometimes that's hard for people to say, well, I see it, why don't you see it?
We see it, we know what's going on. Once again, we have rules. I'm not gonna violate somebody's rights.
Not to beat a dead horse. The fact is, we used to have a group in town that was fairly active, that dealt with addicts who were trying to deal with their issue. We don't have that anymore. And part of the reason for that is that the system is not holding their feet to the fire. That needs to change. You need to encourage behavior that changes the personality of the person who's having to deal with the addiction and changes the habits of the person that has the addiction. It's a hell of a thing to have to do. Very, very difficult. But we're not doing that anymore. And we need to find a way of doing that. We need the support of the system to enforce that.
Max, you get some more questions?
John Blodgett apparently is on YouTube.
Okay.
I don't know what happened to him on Zoom, but he was curious about what resources from the county and state law enforcement are you getting?
So I talk to Main Drug quite a bit. They're short-staffed as well. They're giving us what help we can. We pass information back and forth. And yeah, and it's not that we're not getting drug charges. I mean, we're charging people with drug possession quite frequently. We're still getting them. We're just not getting these big fish. Because it takes more resources. Main Drug would love to help us and is willing to help us. Once again, it's a big state. We don't have a local agent here, so they've got an agent that fills in when he has time here.
And the law enforcement, as everybody knows, and if you've been watching the news, there is a definite shortage of law enforcement throughout the state of Maine.
It's an understatement.
Anything else?
Comments, just appreciating the work you are doing as well as just you doing the presentation tonight. And another comment on reducing poverty as another great way of bringing down crime.
Reducing poverty is always that's why we that's why we were the first to have the community navigator program. We have a lot.
And that's a chicken and the egg controversy, because the people who are doing drugs, that's a large part of the reason that they have poverty. It's not necessarily the other way around. One other thing, you said that roughly half the deaths that you investigated were drug related. That in itself ought to be a shocking statistic, you know. But the event that made me gasp was worse than a death. The issue is critical. It is just amazingly bad.
Yeah, and I don't think people can fathom it, really. They really can't.
No, and some things we can't talk about, obviously.
Right.
But, yeah, no, there's some bad things that happen in this town.
You really do. That's why you're here tonight. Anybody else got anything? Go ahead.
is there a way to provide information to the town without harming any of the individuals involved? Even just a monthly statistic sheet?
Yeah, well, we can do, yeah. we can do
That's what we're
statistics,
planning on doing, but specific instances are hard until
Yeah.
they're resolved.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of, like Mike said, we're privy to some things that we
Of course.
can't share, unfortunately. And as a town manager, I have a whole nother life as like a mom and a grandparent and a human. And very few things, I've been doing this for almost 39 years. Very few things shock me. I came from New Jersey, nothing really shocked me. But I got sideswiped by the bucolic Maine life. And then, on a day-to-day basis, I see what they do, I see what EMS does, and the eye-opening things recently that you see things on TV, oh, is there, bad things happening, and then it hits home. It's eye-opening, I never thought that as a town manager, I would have to get well-versed on sex trafficking or human trafficking. That, to be very honest with you, that is something that I never thought would pass across my desk. That shocked me, and this
It's
town,
a huge part of the drug world.
it's a
goes
huge,
hand in hand.
and that was such a rude awakening, and maybe that's just me being naive, but when you can put a face to a victim, that affects you, like, it's hard when you can put a face to a victim, and it's happening in our community. The more awareness that comes from this, the better it is. And as more things develop, of course, we'll let everybody know, but we have to be more aware of what's happening to our neighbors, to our family, to our friends, and just be more aware of what's going on. And really, resources is what we need. We need resources. And hopefully people will feel more comfortable about coming forward. That's the other part of it is, and I've heard this a couple of times throughout my career here. When I first got here, it was, people were afraid, well, we don't want to come to the town office, or we don't want to do this, we don't want to do that. We have an open door policy. We have a community navigation program. We try to be very well aware of what's going on in the community. And, people, it should be viewed as a safe place to come if you need help, because it is. And I hope people get that feeling. But the more information that's out there, I think the better it is. So. But yes, we're going to get better at telling people what we do and what we're dealing with. We have to. When I first got here, nobody wanted to talk about poverty. Poverty was like, I was told by somebody when I first got here, we don't talk about what our poverty level is. I think, at a select board meeting, I was the one that says, we got to deal with the problem we have, and we have a poverty problem. And that's when we started on down the community navigator program lane, because we have to deal with the problems that we have, and we have to figure out a way to get the resources to help and hopefully make an impact as best we can as a town.
Anybody else get any more questions for John? Thank you, John, for coming
welcome.
tonight.
Thank you.
All right, moving along. There's no public hearings. Any adjustments to the agenda? Seeing none. Citizens' comments.
We have citizens. We're so excited.
Does anybody like to step up? Everybody all set?
This happens when citizens come. We get really excited.
All right, select board comments. Bob?
I just have one. I watched and listened to Fleetwood Mac the other night. Fantastic concert, concert. It was a testimonial to Fleetwood Mac, not the actual. So you know. Man,
I thought you might have gone back in time or
Yeah,
something.
well, great music,
The
great
Wayback
fun,
Machine.
great program, and they're gonna have a few more coming down the road, so support your Waldo Theater.
Will?
I'll just touch base on that. Facebook came up. Saw again today on one of the Waldeboro message boards, there was a lot of misinformation going around about certain things with the town. And I just encourage people to always go to the source for information rather than believe whatever's put on Facebook. Because things get twisted on there and you're better off to go right to Julie. Or somebody else that with the town. And the other thing is I really talking about that, we definitely got to do something about getting treatment. And I don't know if that's the state or whoever, but there's another layer to that too. That's the ground layer, but then there's the next layer of the accountability.
Mhm.
And he mentioned the deferred disposition, and I see that every week in the paper. And some of the things are disturbing. DUIs that are just led down to misdemeanors, and that scares me having a family that's driving on these roads. You know, that's a real serious issue. So there's a lot to unwrap with all this. That's it for me.
Mike? No. Yep, I'm good. Town manager. Report.
Just a couple of things. Budget time is here. Our first meeting is next Tuesday at 6 o'clock. The budget books are done and out and everybody has picked up. So this is our budget book this year. I encourage people to come to the meetings. I encourage you to watch the meetings. It really is where a lot of decisions are made by the budget committee and the select board that set the tone for how we proceed into the next year. And I'll give you a preview. We're going to be talking about staffing in EMS, staffing in the police department. Prices are going up. We're going to talk about our capital program. You know, we got good news about our fund balance, but we also haven't done a lot of work on our roads because we've had to cut some things. So there's a very nice list of roads that need to be paved in this budget document. So it really sets the tone for how we proceed as a community. So it's a lot of fun. I know if you've had so much fun at this meeting, you might want to come back for a budget meeting. But it really is, in my humble opinion, it is the most important meetings that the town has, because it really does set what our goals are for the year and what we want to accomplish. So I just wanted to share that. I wanted to also address some misinformation. So today, I don't often engage in Facebook, but I did see some information today relating to the camper ordinance that the select board was presented by our code enforcement officer. And one of the things that I want to make very clear is that we are not creating new rules. We are enforcing rules that already exist through the state. And it's a codification of those rules. And that was, if somebody had watched the meetings when Mark presented it, that is how it was presented. But I want everybody to understand that everybody gets a bite at the apple. So even though that ordinance is being proposed at a local level, it's codifying the state rules. Does that make sense to everybody? That's how Mark had explained it. There are still rules that exist that you can only be in a camper for so many days. You have to have a sanitary septic system. All of those are not Waldeboro centric rules, they're state rules, but he was putting all the rules in one place so that people were clear and could find them all in one spot in the book and be clear. We are aware there is a housing crisis. The town manager does not want to go out and remove people from homes. That's not what I was hired to do. My goal since I've been here, and if anybody knows me, is to keep people in their homes. I'm very open about that. I'm very transparent about that. I've taken a lot of hits maybe for that at times. But, you know, I like to think that anybody can come in and ask me any question. Please come in, ask me questions. I love talking to people. I'm so excited. We have new faces here. I want to just take you into my office and say, so what do you think? But never feel like you can't come here and talk to me. My door is always open. I'm here. Come in, see me, but you don't need an appointment. If I'm here, I've never turned anybody away. If you have a problem, fine. If you don't, and you want to say something nice, that's fine too. If you need to yell at me, go ahead. But please come and see us. And I appreciate what you said so much today, Will, because, you know, it is. When I took this job 7 years ago, I could have went to many different places, but I chose Waldeboro. I chose to be here. I chose this community because it was and still is a very special place. I love the diversity of our community. I love that I never know who's going to walk into my office. And we've come a long way in 7 years, and we still have a lot longer to go. And I want to be a part of that. It's a really is a wonderful town. We have some difficult things we have to deal with, but we will only grow stronger through our adversity. And that's all I have to say tonight. But thank you, Will, for your words.
All right. We'll move on to the consent calendar. Somebody like to make a motion to approve the consent calendar? Oh, sorry, Max.
Sorry. Quick question. Full budget book is available.
It will be on Tuesday night. Or Tuesday, probably. I'll try to get it on tomorrow. We're a little short-staffed in the town office, so that was one of the things I meant to do this week, but I haven't gotten to it yet. Or Thursday, I mean. I said Tuesday, didn't I? I will try to do it by Thursday, sorry. By the end of this week.
Somebody like to make a motion to approve the consent calendar?
I'll make them.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Okay. All right, on to new business. Main water request to apply for a grant.
So there is a federal rule now that all connections from the water system to someone's house has to be inspected for lead connections. As you know, technically, the water company is the town's, but we run it through our third-party Maine Water. They were able to apply for a grant that would cover most of the cost of this, but it was time sensitive. We just needed your blessing to say it's a good idea to apply for it. I support this wholeheartedly because it would cover the cost of having to literally go in and inspect each connection in the town of Waldeboro if you're part of the water system. So that is something that is really important. And it would save ratepayers from having to pay that rate.
Do you know how much this grant is valued at?
I believe they're applying for the full 100 and it would be around 300,000, I believe.
300,000?
I will confirm that and report back at the next meeting, but
I'm
it's-
just curious.
I think they're covering up to $85 of each connection. My math might be a little off. It's not
I thought it
300.
was 50.
Yeah, it could be, it's 50 because, yeah.
Yeah.
I carried too many zeros. Sorry. It's
Somebody like
10
to-
to 7, I'm a little late, but I just need your blessing. I don't need just to let you know that it's okay for us to apply.
Would somebody like to make a motion for that?
I'll make a motion that we endorse the grant application for lead service line inventory from Maine Drinking Water Program.
And what will happen is, if it is found, there'll be new connections and everything made. It's not your entire line, it's just that connection from the end of the service into the home. I'm right about that, right?
That's
You
correct,
read-
yes.
yeah. It's called a gooseneck.
Well, actually, the gooseneck is exempted. It still
Oh.
can be lead, but the lead pipes, and there was one other material.
Yeah, but
I can't remember what it
I can't
was.
remember what it was.
Yeah, but
either.
there were a lot of lead services. Maine actually was in the forefront of banning lead piping
Mhm.
back in the day, so it's expected that there will be zero in the public water system. But
They have to, we have
the
to.
federal
check
government
those
has
to comply with federal
mandated
mandate.
this documentation. Um, and in a welcome change, they actually funded the mandate.
Which is a shocker.
Which is great.
All right, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Any more discussion on it? Seeing none, all those in favor? Okay, you're all set. All right, budget update.
Our budget update, as I've said before in my report, that the budget is, updated. We have made, we put all the requests in. I will tell you that our revenue, is up 22.23%, in the, requested budgets. And our expenditures unfortunately are also up. And that number comes in at 18.69%, which if we were to leave it as is, would result in a 14.48% cost in increase in potential taxes. The good news about that is these are the items that the select board and the budget committee will chat about. So these aren't carved in stone. These are the items, just to give you an example. Public safety, the public safety budgets, and that includes EMS, fire and police are up 9.9%. And we'll have extensive conversations about that because if you hear on the news, we're having difficulty hiring law enforcement officers. We have had 2 positions open for about 2.5 years now. For, like I said, about half a day, we had full staff and then we had retirements and one of our other officers leave. So, you know, and part of the problem is that Knox County Sheriff's Department raises their rates. Lincoln County raises their rates, then we have to raise ours. So a lot of great discussion will come up during the budget committee and the select board meetings for the budget, because we'll talk about services. What is the level of service that we want provided? And what's great about the budget committee is it's a really unique blending of the town, because they're elected from all over, essentially, just like the select board, but it really gives you a good feeling of different perspectives from the community. Other cost drivers, community services. We've gotten a lot of requests from community service agencies. Everybody, of course, is looking for more money. And transfer station is up our share, and the share for Cushing and Friendship. Again, tipping fees, huge increases in that, trucking fees for the garbage. And that will also lead into what the transfer station committee is looking at now, which is pay as you throw for garbage disposal. So that will be something that is talked about, I imagine, quite a bit in the budget. So that's kind of like an overview of where a lot of the cost drivers are for the operating budget, but a lot of the revenue sources. One of the things is, for the first time, I think ever, well, at least in the last 7 years, we actually know what to anticipate for municipal revenue sharing. So that's up about $76,000. We also have increases in our anticipation for, if you'll recall, about 2 months ago, we did rate increases for EMS as far as what we could charge through Medicare. So we anticipated those increases. Interest, of course, interest rates are high on the borrowing side. Interest rates are also high on the saving side. So we've also anticipated a slight increase in that. And I did utilize more of our fund balance. As we learned a couple meetings ago, our fund balance is quite healthy, and how we proceed with that. Another huge driver for the budget and those increases are our capital improvement fund. And just to give you a little idea, our our highway, surface paving reserve. In 2023, we only budgeted 219,000. If you'll recall, we always used to budget 500,000. Last year we knew we weren't going to pave, so we cut it down to 150. I put in this year 650,000, and that's an increase of 500,000, and that is a way to use our fund balance to make sure that we get those roads paved. And that would be Old Augusta Road, 8 miles, Orse Corner, North Nobleboro Road, Mill, Elm, Chapel, Castner, Simon, Burnham, Hoke, Higher, Reef, Cross Street, and North Nobleboro Road. And everybody will appreciate it because North Nobleboro is on the way to the transfer station. But just so everybody's aware, those are the types of drivers. And I'm sure we'll have a conversation about relief of the mill rate with also some of the fund balance. So we are aware that the county, I believe their proposed budget was up a potential 8.5%. And I do not know or have an inkling yet of where the school will end up. So all good things that we will talk about when the budget is here. And I just want to also point out that the budget books were out on time, and I want to thank Tanya Blodgett for all of her hard work on this book. And if you find a pot of gold, let me know. There is a little hidden pot of gold in here. Wanted to see who was closely reading everything we put together. So that's it.
All right. On to 10.3. Set the date for public hearing for the land use ordinance change.
That's Max.
Nope, that's Max. Front and center, young man.
I should have actually been in here when you guys were adjusting the agenda. That's actually something the select board won't have to settle. That's something that the planning board can actually do in March. I can talk about the ordinance changes if people would like me to kill a few minutes.
It's up to you. Are there significant changes?
No. Most of the changes are going to be associated with LD 2003 or clarifying some items. LD 2003 is the housing legislation that the state passed a year or so ago. And a lot of towns have thought of it as the overreach on home rule and all that. Waldeboro was kind of ahead on a lot of the standards that the state is actually imposing. For example, accessory dwelling units, the town has always allowed accessory apartments. I think the only difference we're going to have is just saying that if someone wants to do an accessory apartment, it just has to be it has to be tied to potable water and have sufficient septic system, which kind of a no-brainer, at least that's my opinion. And the other part with the accessory dwelling unit is that it can be detached from the main building. So originally it just had to be a shared wall, it had to be in the building. But now if someone wanted to put a tiny home on their lot, they can do that with no restriction. Well, still have to meet setback requirements, but again, seems pretty minor compared to everything else. We always allowed multiple dwelling units, principal dwelling units on a lot as long as they can meet the minimum lot size and other dimensional standards. So again, we were well ahead with the state saying you have to allow 4 units on a lot. We've allowed as many units as long as you have a big enough lot size for it. So again, really no change for that. The only big change is the affordable housing development item. Again, we allow multifamily almost everywhere, and as we've experienced with Volunteers America, they're going to go where there is sewer and water. So we're looking at sort of the Village Route 1 area. And really, that's the only big change we're going to be facing. The other ordinance items are just some complaints or some housekeeping items that Mark and I have kind of would like to address. The camper ordinance is not going to be included in that. I would like to stress that right now. But this is talking about some uses that probably weren't in there that we should have, like demolition. Technically, we need to have demolition on the land use chart. I think removing 1 or 2 items that people have requested to remove, and then adding some standards. Again, this is all very boilerplate stuff, and I I just want to get ahead of the curve for LD 2003. When I say this helps us get in compliance, we're not really changing too much other than putting in some standards for housing. That's it.
So you said the planning board,
Yeah, so.
Land use.
So because of my work, I have been mixing up a lot of dates and thought that we needed a 30-day notice, but actually the planning board can just set a date and have a 13-day public hearing notice. So,
right at the planning board meeting?
yeah, so the planning board can set up a time at their
Okay.
meeting, what works for them. I've been working on a lot of comp plans for other towns, so I'm
Okay.
really, I am zoned out on a few things now.
Okay. Cool. So I guess we don't have to worry about that.
Yep, you're all set for now.
All right, good. All right, Max. Anybody get any questions for Max before he runs off? Okay. You're
Yeah,
upset.
but I do. Do you have a draft, maybe in Word with track changes or something? Do you have a draft of the?
I do. Yeah, I do, and I can send, and I have it broken up by article as well, so I can send that out too.
That'd be great. Thank you.
All right, old business. Archaeology Committee Guidelines Update.
I know this is like our favorite subject. So as I was doing the guidelines and I went through what was suggested through the bylaws of what people had brought forward, I had a few questions, so I contacted the MMA. So I need a little bit more time to work with the group because some of what they anticipate doing that they thought they could keep private, because they're a public committee, we have to. So one of their things was if somebody they wanted to dig on their land, and they did not want the general public to know that they were digging on their land. They can't discuss that in a public meeting, but they can't go into executive because the rules of executive session would not apply under the rules that typically govern a committee meeting. So there's a couple of little nuances they suggested and had some other questions that I did not know the answers to, that I'll have to get back with the group of citizens who brought this before the board, just to try to work out and iron out some of these little parameters of how to go about this, just because I wanted to make sure we covered all of our bases. So that's where we are with the archaeological. I will update you hopefully at the next meeting, but I got a very lengthy email back from the MMA legal department that I just have to run things by the citizens to make sure what their intent was, and then figure out how we can make that fit into a town committee.
All right,
And
HVAC update.
HVAC update. They will be coming back on March 23rd to finish they have to redo the calculations based on work that was done in the EMS side so that they can properly size the system. That is the one thing that they need to do. They're not going to do the fire side, as we discussed at the last time, but then I will have a working set of RFP plans shortly thereafter, so that we can put out an RFP for the HVAC. But I want to just thank the Public Works Department. They did a great job of sealing everything up that they possibly could.
Has it made a difference?
I will tell you, the woman's room is a lot warmer. It may not fix our problem of no air conditioning during the summer, but I can tell you it is a lot warmer in the woman's room. So I really would like to thank, and that was really Will and John Daigle who did most of the work on that. I would like to thank them. I think the entire staff thank you for that.
Okay. That's it. Anything for the next meeting? For the agenda? Anybody get anything?
We'll be working on the budget, yes.
Well, no, because I did not schedule any budget committee meetings when you had regular select board meetings.
I read the schedule wrong. I had March 5th down as budget. Select board.
Well, it's a joint meeting.
Yeah,
It's the first meeting, I have to say, but we on regularly scheduled select board nights, because what was happening is people were sitting through an hour and a half select board meeting, and then they had to work on numbers and. I should also say that that first night we'll have a wonderful, happy PowerPoint presentation with music. I know. None of you get the happiness that I get for the budget. I don't understand it. It's the most important thing we do. It's so exciting.
Get ready, keep it back up.
I will make that, if that is a song choice, I will make that happen. But like I said, it really is an important thing and it is a really important job. Sorry.
I guess, we'll adjourn the select board and go into the Board of Assessors.
Oh, no, it was more a question. So am I going
Okay.
to stop the recording and then restart it for the Board of Assessors or just keep it as one?
You can just keep it as,
Keep it as one recording.
Yeah. Sure.
and I'm going to leave so that Daryl can sit up here and be efficient.
I can't remember who's the chair of the Board of Assessors.
I believe it's Mike.
No, is it Mike? Oh.
Oh, boy.
Wow, you are the man.
He's getting the paperwork just this moment. I apologize. I guess things got a little crazy last week.
Yes, we heard. She's right across the road from me. Okay,
So the stuff was out there, but it didn't get to you.
okay. So I guess we'll call to order and we have a quorum. Citizen comments? Regular meeting minutes. I haven't seen them.
You've signed them already. I usually get them
Okay.
because these meetings are so sparse. Get them right back to you. You've signed them. They're in the books. But
Okay.
at the next meeting, we do.
Okay,
official.
all right. All right, so
I'll make a
abatements for personal
We
property.
gotta
You got,
vote on the meeting.
I'm
on the
sorry.
minutes. I make a motion to approve the minutes from November 14th. 2023.
Well, second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Perfect.
so there are a few abatements that have come in, very few this year. Next week is the deadline, I believe, to get them in, but the first two are personal property. There was a 1-5 Enterprise and a Cornhole Connections across the street. They never did file anything as to what was in there, but I assessed them for an estimated $5,000 and then they've moved out of town, so recommend that we clean it up. That's where those are.
So you want a motion on that right now? I make a motion, we abate $78 for 2024-15 and 2024-16.
Second.
At $78.
Second.
More discussion? All in favor? Abatements for real estate.
For real estate, the first one, Cheryl Woods has a camper up off Lois Lane, which is up on 220. And somehow I measured it up with 3 tip outs, but that is not the case. There's only 2 on that.
What is a tip out?
A tip out comes out of the camper.
Okay.
So if you look.
Oh, I
in the-
see. It's an extension, so you can
Yeah,
have a little.
there is a
extra space.
photo in there
Okay.
that shows them, and I had somehow put 3 on that thing. So it amounts to $1,000 and would recommend the 1560.
Make that motion for 2024-17 to abate for $15.60.
I'll second.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
The next one was up on Noyes Road or up on the pond, up on Washington Pond on the backside.
Madonna.
Madomic,
A little ways away from one.
Washington line. When I repriced it, it was put in as a log home when it's actually log siding. And there were 2 cards because if you look at the photo, there's a house and then there's a cabin down on the lake. Madomic Pond. And we had a deck on the card 1 and the same deck on card 2, so I had that on there twice. Would recommend the 17,000, I believe that it, no, 38,000, the difference there in value or 592.80.
I'll make that motion, 2024-18 to abate $592.80.
Second. Any more discussion? Voted yes.
The last one, the Eaton's bought down on 583 Friendship Road back in 2022 and paid $525,500. It was graded as a C-110 and had a value of $250,000. So it was increased to a B grade to have a value of $515,000. It is not a B grade home. I have gone through it with them. It's an average home.
Mhm.
But that's the cost of an average home today, $525,000. So would recommend that we go back to the C+10. They would like it valued at about 280,000 because that's the percentage of what a lot of properties are selling for. They took the land and they only have 7/10 of an acre, and they took a lot with 5 acres and divided it square foot by square foot and came out with a percentage, but that's not the way land is valued. There's base lot, there's improvements.
But you recommend
I would
$1,170.
Yeah.
All right, I'll make that motion, 2024-19 to abate $1,170.
I'll second the motion. Further discussion? All in favor?
And then there was a tree growth application put in on 251 Dutch Neck, which is on the corner down there, the area on the right. It is 12-acre lot, so they do qualify. They do have the forest plan. Recommend it takes 6,000 off the value. Same
Just
with that.
about. Just 6,000 off the value. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, I make a motion 24-1 for tree growth, reduce the property value by 6,000.
Set the valuation or the tax?
The valuation.
Yeah, I'll second that.
Further discussion? All in favor?
So that's what I have, unless you have questions for me.
Make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Now. I'll make a motion to adjourn for the select board.
Second that too. We're actually done before 8.
I do have the form.
All those
If
in
you
favor?
wanna
Oh, yeah.
sign the work you just did,
Um,
that would be great.
This pen just quit on me, so I need another pen. Thank you.
Must be left-handed.
Hmm?
Left-handed stopped working.
I don't know. Good question.
They could come in for the event.
I'm selling,
Very
trying to
clear.
sell as fast as I can.
Very
I
clear.
get sick of paying these frickin' taxes.
I hear you.
We actually didn't sign the warrants earlier.
I think they're doing that.
Not
They're right there.
changes.
No, these are the,
Fluid, let's say.
use the signature. I guess they are.
Do you know those people that were in here? I didn't know if they were. Yes.
I think it works.
Okay.
I grab them as you.
Yes.
go. Sure.
Sorry to hold you up. with the pen.
Oh, that's holding me up at all.
Not on here.
That one, yeah, the other one.
No, they're not in
I think
section,
it's-
this one, right?
Yes.
Right?
I'll pass it down this way.
Oh,
I thought it was just to deal with tax, setting the,
Oh, I don't think you can,
no,
I don't. I think you're out. Whoops, you made all the motions, didn't you?
Yep.
Change that to Will.
Sure.
What? What are you gonna say?
Admin's not a assessor. I didn't even think of that. it's a conflict for him to be a legislator.
Oh, is it?
These are the ones we did tonight.
We don't want him arrested for.
Is this the only document
Oh,
that,
there was a little folder there, a couple more. there.
There's that one there.
let's not run it.
That's it. Let's eat and run it.
It's the new Friday night already. Transportation.
Signed that one.
Yeah, great. Looking forward to 4:30.
Good time. I like it early.
This doesn't have a signature page, just.
It's not a Friday, sorry.
So I guess with this would go to. We'll go stuff. Julie, I guess? Yep.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Evan, I didn't think of that.
I didn't either. I thought the only thing I couldn't do was set a no.
Mill rate?
No,
No,
I
I
think that was the only thing I couldn't do.
I don't know, I'll ask the boss. And you can have input as a citizen, right? So.
Yep. So that, yeah.
Will didn't sign, but you got 3 signatures on every one of them.
He'll be in tomorrow.
Yeah.
I can chase him down easy.
Yeah.
No,
Don't worry,
yeah,
Rick.
we'll sign. John didn't sign. It was above John. We'll get him. They're in Florida? Is that where they're at?
They're down in Biloxi, Louisiana.
Louisiana.
They put a nice photograph on Facebook.
Called my daughter today. I didn't realize they were in Iceland. It sounded like they were next door, but
Yeah.
had gone to the Blue Lagoon and headed to water.
You want to talk about solid waste sometime? Love to.
I have a harebrained idea.
Yeah, we need something.
The Dragon Cement
Yes,
closed.
right.
They're gonna buy product up that plant. It's served, it's served by rail. It is high voltage 3-phase power coming in. It's a spot. I know you're not opposed to incineration at the cement plant, certainly. But.
Yeah.
Site,
Guys, you might wanna hold on.